So today is Power Teacher Pro Training 2023 for Standards Gradebook. And as I talked about this morning, this is a you day, right? When we're done with this, we want you to be able to create assignments, take attendance, attach standards and score standards in your daily work. And we want you to do that with comfortability and confidence, okay? So as we're going through this day, this morning was a super awesome session because you guys asked questions, and we want you to do that as well this afternoon. Ask us questions because then we make sure you know what you know, and we know what you need to know. So when school starts, you're ready to start creating assignments. Okay. We use Teams for this training. We didn't used to. We used to do this live all the time, but Amanda and I talked about this has been our best day yet. We had 28 this morning, and we have 12 or 13 this afternoon. By far our best attendance of these classes that we've had, even when they were live. So we're sure glad you can stay at home, take this class via Teams, and get all the knowledge that you need for Power Teacher Pro Standards Gradebook. The hard part for me is, especially with standards, as Amanda knows, I like to get my hands on you and know who you are. So I can't get my hands on you because it's by video. So make sure you communicate, make sure you follow along, take good notes, ask questions. My email is going to be on here at the end. If you have questions with standards later, just email me. I'll help you out, guys. I'll jump on Teams again with you to remind you about everything. As we go through the class, mute your microphone, raise your hand if you have a question, or jump in the chat and ask a question, or just unmute your mic when you have a question and jump in to the conversation when you can. I do go quickly, and sometimes too quickly for you, and you need me to show you something again, just ask me to show you again. I will gladly show you again. Okay. So who are we? My name is Robert Schaefer, a Power School specialist out of Bismarck. This is year 9 for me, 8 completed. June 1 started the 9th year for me after 22. I always say 22, but it might have been 23 years of teaching and learning. Just like you, I was a K1, 2, and 5 elementary classroom teacher. My longest years was in Bismarck as a first grade teacher for 7 years. Taught standards all of those years. My 2 years in Minnesota with a different grade book, I taught 2 years of second grade with standards, and I taught a year of 5th grade in Bismarck also with standards. So I've worked with standards in the grade book as a teacher for about 8 or 9 years. And my last 10 years was as a principal. Again, my teachers in my schools use standards with Power School. So I've got a lot of experience with standards in particular in the grade book. 3 boys, married, 27, 23, and 17. Taylor, Ian, and Isaiah is a senior at Century. And then Amanda, I'll let her introduce herself.
Well, Rob, you could have just kept going.
I could have.
Amanda Wilson, and my husband and I live in Mandan. We've been in Mandan almost 10 years this fall. Before that, I lived in Bismarck before we bought our house. So I've been with Edutech now. I am on year 14. Before that, I was a middle school English teacher up in Williston, used Power School as a teacher, and then I took this job. Right, 2010, we were still implementing schools. So lots has happened in 13 years, but luckily the grade book doesn't change too much. We've had one major change when we went from Power Teacher Gradebook that was Java based to Power Teacher Pro, which is just a web-based version, which is much better because Java used to, that was a headache. That's all I can say. But
yeah, perfect. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, Rob is super passionate about standards, so you'll get that.
And that's a perfect segue into what we're doing here. Power Teacher Pro with standards is substantially better than what the old gradebook was with the Java version, which is why I'm excited about it. Of course, it gives us the ability to differentiate, create student playlists, teach to learning levels, all of that stuff. And I'll show you a good amount of that today. But as Amanda and I were talking earlier, she knows a teacher from the northwest corner who wants to know more about standards, we want you to attend classes on this stuff. I've got personalized learning classes for standards. I've got regular standards implementation classes. You as teachers can sign up for any of those and come learn how standards work within PowerSchool, because there's admin stuff and there's teacher stuff, and there's only so much as a teacher that you are kind of able to do. You only see what the admin turns on for you. So if you're missing something, we want that fixed and working for you. Okay, so today's class, we're going to show you a few things on the admin side. I'm going to show you grade scales, and we're going to talk about grade scales. I'm going to show you the calculation method, and we're going to talk about the calculation method and how it works. So you understand when you're scoring a skill 10 times, what's actually being scored and what actually counts. I'm going to show you attendance. I'm going to show you the information card for students, and I'm going to show you how to do a few searches and views in the Power Teacher side when you first log in, okay? I'm also going to show you how to set things up in Power Teacher Pro so standards works correctly. We're going to spend a lot of time on categories, and then we're going to show you a bunch of assignments. I'm going to show you a bunch that I've created already, and then I'll create a couple with you. You'll create some assignments and categories today, so your gradebook's ready to go. I'm going to show you how to copy assignments from year to year, because once you build your first year in PowerSchool with all your assignments and all your standards attached, you're going to not want to do that work again next year, so you can just copy what you have. And so next year, all your assignments with standards attached are ready to go. We'll look at progress, which is super cool in PowerSchool, and then I'll wrap up with some reports at the end, okay? So I want you guys to log into PowerSchool. It is https:// yourschoolname.ps.state.nd.us/teachers and teachers. And Amanda can put that in the chat for us, because I don't think it's on my PowerPoint like it was earlier. So if you're having a hard time logging in, let us know and she'll get your URL sent to you. Hopefully you have your username and your password set up already, okay? So any questions on that PowerPoint pre-information stuff before we jump into PowerSchool and start talking PowerSchool? Not seeing any, so we will get started. Hi, Whitney. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start talking a little bit about standards on the admin side a little bit, so you kind of see how they work, and then we're getting the grade book. In your document, we're going to start on page 3 in your doc in a little bit. I rarely teach from a doc, but actually in this class I do try to follow it so you can follow along with me. Okay, so here's what you see in front of you, which looks differently than what you see in your grade book. This is the admin side of PowerSchool. PowerSchool has 3 portals: the admin side, the teacher side, and the public portal side. Okay, so we manage standards in the district office on the public's or the admin side of PowerSchool. Okay, so I'm going to show you how standards look, and I'm going to show you the standards grade scale, and we're going to talk a little bit about how things calculate and are graded in standards so you understand that. Okay, so Tiffany, the document, top of the chat. If you scroll down to the top of the chat, you'll see the document. I did send it in emails, but you don't have a K-12 email, so you might not have gotten that. And Gretchen, looks like you're good to go. I'll see you next week anyway, Gretchen. So if you have any questions, just keep them, hold them. Okay, yeah, it probably was posted before you logged in. So just scroll up there and it should be there, way up on the top. If it's not.
Yeah, I don't see it. You said that at the beginning and I thought, well, maybe it just hadn't been shared yet, but it's not in my chat log. Sorry.
Let me try it again.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so now back to the admin side of PowerSchool. In PowerSchool, on the admin side, your standards show up in a list that looks just like this. You're going to see my second grade standards that you're going to see in my grade book a little bit. When we put them in, they come in as different subject areas like so. If we go to our language arts standards, very often they're going to come in with headings like this. And then when you open them up, you're going to see statements of skills. That's how the standards, the way they're listed right here is the way they're going to be listed in your grade book under your course. So in this case, if I'm a second grade reading teacher, they're going to be in my second grade reading class. If you have a writing class, that's where your writing or English or language standards will be. If you have an English or language arts class, you're probably going to have some English or language or writing standards there, okay? Depending on how your district did that work, but I'll help you make sure you can see those standards today, okay? Math is another common subject area where we do a lot of standards. They come in the same way with those kind of large category headings with your individual skills listed below them, okay? And they're just going to be in a list like so. When we start scoring, I'll explain to you to make sure you understand which one do I attach and score. We'll help you understand that today, okay? Questions on the standards and how they look. Amanda, did you have a question? No, good? Okay.
No, I'm good.
I saw your face pop up, so I thought maybe you had something to say.
Oh, I hit the camera off and I didn't mean to.
That's all right. Okay. So now this is a standards grade scale. Not all of them are the same, but I would say 75% of you use this scale because when Jer and I and Amanda and Rox implement you, this is the scale I recommend. It's the best practice scale that we use in the state of North Dakota. Okay. Your focus when scoring standards is only the 4, the 3, the 2, or the 1 with these descriptions. Okay. This is the part that's important to you. You don't worry about anything else besides this little piece right here. Okay. And I'll pull that in. This is what's important to you. When you're working with kids and they do an activity and you watch them work an activity with observation, or they're doing some practice at their desks, or they're working in small groups, did they meet my expectation? It's a 3. If they didn't, it's a 2. And that's how you grade standards. If I do a worksheet with 10 problems, the expectation is you know those 10 problems with confidence. Did they complete those skills as you expected? If they did, it's a 3. If they didn't, it's a 2. You're not grading 8 out of 10 anymore with percentages and points. It's just, did they do my expectation? It's a 3. If they didn't, it's a 2. 4s are used sparingly for things like big projects or writing examples or presentations. Kids can achieve more and show more and represent a 4. Listening to a student reading with fluency, they can exceed what you expect a second grader to sound like or read like. That could be a 4 example. Worksheets and simple activities like that individually, a lot of times 4s aren't even available. 1s are noticeable as well. Those are those kids that need a lot of help, guys, right? So as they're working, they can't get started. They need somebody to prompt them. They're being pushed by you a lot. Those are the 1 students, okay? And you want to score them as such, okay? All right, so that's kind of how the grade scale works. The last piece I want to show you on the admin side is how standards are calculated, okay? So if you look at my school, Sanford Elementary School right here, we calculate with the most recent 3 calculation method. So if I score a skill 20 times, 17 times are for proof and documentation, proof of learning over time, and the last 3 grades count and are calculated. Not everything we put in the grade book with standards counts for the final grade. Only the last 3 do. It's called a current score, which lends to the idea that we can have students get 1s, get 1s, get 1s, get some 2s. As long as they're proficient at the end of the year, it doesn't matter if they struggled at the beginning, which we know in traditional grades, if I get an F on a bunch of assignments, it's going to impact my grade and pull it down. That's not how this works in standards. Ones and twos can be used as often as they need to, as long as we're proficient by April and May. That's all that matters, okay? So your school is using the most recent 3 calculation method, and you'll see that in your grade book here a little bit once I log in, okay? So is there any questions? That was a really quick, that's like 3 hours in my standards day that I just talked through really quickly. Any questions about how your standards look, the grade scale you use with your 4-3-2-1, or your calculation method that's going to be pushed out to you? Any questions on those before I jump into the grade book? So the question from Emily, do these show up to parents when we enter ones and twos? Yes. Yep. And Emily, you just loudly proclaimed the worry teachers have. Okay. And that's something about standards that we really grasp and hold on to. We grade honestly in standards. Understand this as a teacher. It's not your fault if students do not become proficient in all standards every year. They're not going to. That's the truth. We're all good at some things and not as good as at other things. And our job as a standards teacher is to simply demonstrate how they performed the standard. Sometimes they're going to get ones and twos. Sometimes they're going to stay twos all year and not ever become proficient. My gonna be senior Isaiah is a perfect example on that. Math and science are hard for him. And if he becomes proficient, it's way at the end of the year, maybe in many, many skills. He's not a proficient learner in math and science. It's hard for him. So he should simply be approaching and working towards that. So we have to really work hard to be honest with our scoring and not worry about trying to make myself look good by making sure all my kids are proficient, because they're not going to be. You know, and I know many kids, as they move through school, do not move as fast as others in some skills, and we just have to score and represent it that way. Okay, so that's a wonderful question that kind of gets me on one of my soapboxes. So there you heard it. Okay, all right, so now I'm going to log into the grade book, and we're going to spend some time on the grade book piece. And I'll just reiterate what Amanda said and what I said earlier. Come to a class to learn all about this stuff if you want to know more about it. Personalized learning would be great, or one of my standards implementation classes. Okay, so on page 3 in the document, when you logged into the grade book, it probably is, when we go to PowerTeacher Pro, it's probably going to bring up a little video with some pointers and all that. Just close that because I'm going to show you a lot of that stuff today. But there is always a help up by your initials up in the top right, and you can watch any of these videos anytime you want to. In your document, it doesn't talk about this page. This is your attendance page. This is your PowerTeacher page before we get into the grade book. We're going to spend a little time on this before we get into the grade book to talk about standards in particular, okay? On this page, you're going to see all your sections, all your periods, okay? The two most important for you are AM and PM. My PM, you can see, is called second grade behaviors, because in my grade book, we grade behavior standards there. So I've changed the name to my behavior class, but I still take attendance there. So I can't confuse myself if I change the name like I did in this case, okay? And I did that on purpose for you, so you can kind of see how this works. All the other sections, reading, English, math, physical education, and underwater basket weaving, these are my classes. I don't take attendance on those classes. Those are only for gradebook purposes. And in your case, most of you will be doing standards grades in all of those sections. Some of you will be doing standards in reading, writing, and math, and maybe in social studies and science, you're still doing traditional grades, which is why some of you came to class this morning and then again this afternoon. Your teacher or your administrator will clarify what standards and what isn't for you. Some of you will do standards in everything, like the teachers from Napoleon. They're doing standards in all classes, okay? Taking attendance is simple and easy, and it couldn't be easier. In our elementary school, we do it twice a day. When they get off the bus or just arrive from the playground in the morning, and after lunch or recess in the afternoon. We take attendance those 2 times. I always call them, as a principal, my soft landing time. It's when we welcome them into the room and greet them in the morning or the afternoon. Okay, so to take attendance, we simply click on the Take Attendance button behind our AM section. And when you do that today, you're not going to be able to take attendance because school isn't in session for you yet, but it is for me. Now, I will clearly say this so Amanda isn't confused like she was this morning. We assume everybody is present in PowerSchool. So if I come into school day 1, everybody's there. All I do is submit. Boom, done. Attendance taken. Present, everyone, submit. Okay. Now let's say I missed somebody. So I'm going to go back to that attendance and I want to mark somebody absent. I change the code to absent. Let's say Megan is gone and Ann is gone. And then I submit. Now I mark 2 kids absent. Guys, it's not any easier than that. It's so simple. So I'll do it again for my PM. Take attendance for my PM session. Let's say I still have those 2 kids that are gone, which was, I believe, Scott. No, it was Megan, not Scott. And it was Ann. Okay, those 2 are absent. And then I got a couple kids that were farting around in the bathroom after recess. So I got Jacob tardy and I got Jack tardy. And I want to tell Jack's mom about that because she always wants to know. And I'm going to say Jack was late for PM session due to bathroom feistiness. Let's call it that. I wouldn't say it was misbehavior, just being a kid.
I was going to say
Feistiness.
shenanigans.
Shenanigans. I like that one. Let's do shenanigans. Shenanigans, period. So then I click OK, and now that's posted, and I'm going to get called to the office because I'm using words like shenanigans for parents. But there it is. It's posted and ready to go. And now they know why he's tardy, and I submit that, and I did my PM attendance. Guys, this is so simple. When they come in the morning, have this page up, take attendance. When they come in after recess, have this page open, take attendance. And actually, my teachers, yes, Alexis, all parents are required to have PowerSchool in the state of North Dakota. You bet they are. Do they all set up a username and password and use PowerSchool? That's another question, but that's up to your school. For us, we made sure everybody had a username, password, and logged in. We made sure of it. At a small school, and we just made sure everybody knew how to use it and they used it. Okay, good question. With standards in PowerSchool, I take my attendance first thing in the morning, and then I immediately go into my grade book because as we're doing activities, I'm going and putting assignments in throughout the morning. And then I would go back to my Power Teacher page, take attendance, and then I'd go into Power Teacher Pro and I'd be ready to put assignments in again. So my grade book as a standards teacher was open all day and ready to use. So that's something you might get into that pattern as well. Okay, up on the top, you're going to see multiple schools. If you're a PE teacher or a music teacher that teaches at other schools, you might have other schools. Most of you as classroom elementary teachers will not. Over on the left, you see daily bulletin. If you're administrator, most times this is the administrative secretary, might put a daily bulletin with what's for lunch today, what activities are going on after school, any other school announcements, they might be under the daily bulletin. And then down on the bottom is your state reporting information page. This is your MISO3 information. So based on your teacher license number, what is your salary? What students do you teach in what subject areas, and are you certified to do that? Where did your degree come from, and what is your highest level of degree, and what are your years of experience? That's the kind of stuff that are in this page, and your administrator will help you with this page if they use it as they should. They all should be using it, but again, that's kind of up to each school if they've been trained on how to use it, okay? On this page, there are some cool other pieces here. If you use Power Lunch, you may be asked to submit a lunch count for today or tomorrow. When we did this in Wing, we asked for tomorrow's count because my cook wanted to know tomorrow's numbers today so she could prepare after lunch what she's gonna get ready for tomorrow. If you eat lunch, you probably will be wanting to put that in. If you're doing a breakfast count, my guess is it's also for tomorrow. Some schools take student lunch by 9 a.m., get your lunch count in for today. But you'll be instructed on that based on your administration and what they want, how they want to use that. Some don't use Power Lunch at all, and you don't do anything with lunch counts here. The other most important part of this page, besides taking attendance, is your student information card, okay? Used to be a backpack, but now it's a student information card. So if we click on that, now you see your class list over on the left, like I do. And now there's all kinds of information here about your students, okay? So I'm gonna pick today Jack Cooper, gonna be my kid. He's kind of my kid I pick on. When I choose him, you see their quick lookup page. Now, if you're in a high school, you're gonna see all their classes from all the different periods that they rotate through to. For you, you're gonna see all his classes that you give grades for. And what you have to understand about standards grades, first off, is the quick lookup shows nothing. But it does if you teach them to click here. If they click here, they're going to see all their assignments. So if I click under reading, I'm going to see all of Jack's assignments. And you can see I have a bunch of assignments that I copied from last year that are ready to go. And if they click on the little blue graph, there's the standard scores that I've scored for some assignments for Jack over time. So every standard that I've attached, and you can see the scores that he's receiving so far. He's getting some 2s and 1s so far because we're just starting out in standards. Okay, so we have to teach parents how to do that quick lookup traditional view. Okay, so I'm going to go back to there. And that's something, if you're a standard school, your school should have a procedure for. We should be spending time with parents on how to log in and how to see grades. Okay, so Emily, I think you're from Wilton. Go bug Macy and tell her Rob sent you. So you can learn how to bug your parents and teach this to them, okay? The other piece is there is a standards grades tab here. This is what we really want parents to click on. Once they click here, now they can see what their current score is on all the standards so far with the trend as the parents see it.
Rob,
Okay.
we had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Tiffany asked if there was a video tutorial that we could play for parents at back to school night or open house.
You know, Tiffany, I should start charging for this stuff. It's like, I can't be at every school's open house and teach their parents how to do this stuff. At what point do we start doing this, Tiffany, instead of having Rob do it? No, there's not a video, but I have created a step-by-step PDF form that I could hand out to parents, and it takes you through everything step, but you do this and then you click on this and then it's 5 easy little steps. Tiffany, email me and I'll send that to you. You bet. You won't mess this up. This will be the worst you'll be at it. You'll be better at it next year in the open house, I promise. Okay. So anyway, when they get here, these are the standards that have been scored so far this year for Jack. This is his current grade. And Emily and Alexis, this should make you feel better. I've got some 1s and I've got some 2s. That's where they should be so far. And if we click on that trend, it shows all the assignments and how they've been scored so far. And you can see they're highlighted green because these count in the final grade. As soon as I get more scores for this standard, it will show 10 or 12 scores and only highlight the last 3 green. And the previous 8 or 9 don't count. Okay. So over time, as you build this, you'll see more and more scores for your student. Now I want to show what last year's scores for Jack looked like. So you can see this is his scores last year at the end of the year. A lot of scores from standards over time, right? And if I click on structure of a story here, you're going to see there's pages of assignments with standards being scored and only the last 3 count. Okay, so that's what it'll look like as you move through the year. And your school should have some expectations about how often you should be scoring standards. In my school, we scored them 10 times a term, 40 times a year. That was the goal. We tried to score standards enough times to give kids a chance to prove they know the skill. We didn't do one entry at the end of the term. We scored every day as much as we could to collect data. If you're going to do standards, you might as well be collecting data on standards. Okay. So let me go back here. So when I go into that information card, that's one thing you have the availability to look at is their quick lookup and their standard scores and where they are. So if I get a parent emailing me or calling me, I'm going here, I'm going to their quick lookup, I'm going to their standard grades tab, and I'm opening it up and I'm looking at exactly what they're looking at. So then we can have a conversation together. And in standards, guys, I know we invite questions in traditional grades, but we really want parents asking this stuff. Don't be impatient with them. They're not questioning you. They're just trying to figure out what's going on because they're not used to this stuff. Okay. So the other piece in the top right corner is a select screens drop down. If you open that select screens drop down, you also have a whole bunch of other tools here. Cool information about your students. So for example, if you use contacts, if you click on contacts, this is going to be full of all the contacts for Jack. Who's his mother? Who's his father? Who's his grandparent 1, grandparent 2, guardian 1? It could be emergency contacts. All of this is going to be filled in with your contact information if your school uses contacts. If they don't use contacts, it's going to be demographics. And again, all of this information is going to be full for you. On my test site, you're not going to see all this information because we don't update all this in our test site. Your school will. It will be full of all your information that you need to know about a kid. So you got to make a parent phone call. Come here, click on the student, click on their information card, go to their contacts or demographics screen, and you have the phone number right there at your fingertips. Okay. The other piece that I think is really important is your log entry page. Okay. So view log entries or log entry might be available to you. And this shows me all the log entries my student has ever had. If you don't have a view log entries or log entry screen, it's because your administrator doesn't want you to have the ability to see all their historical log entries. Okay, that's a plugin, that's an addition that some schools use and some schools don't. All of you have a log entry submit page. If you click on that, now you can create a log entry to let your administrator know you had an issue with Jack today. In most cases, it's discipline. Okay. Sometimes I used to use these in Trenton when I was there as a reward. I want to hear good things about our kids so I can put those in a hat, and then we drew some winners at the end of each term 4 times a year. But in this case, it was an insubordination, and let's say it was an organization problem. And Jack had a mess around his cubby today. I asked 3 times for him to organize. Whoops, how do I spell that? There we go. He refused. And I'll submit that. Now, here's the deal with this one. This is a really good example. If I go to view log entries, it shows up down on the bottom as a new log entry for Jack today. But this log entry is going to go to my principal. My principal is going to say, yeah, I'm not approving this one for a historical log entry to follow him around forever because he was disorganized. So he's probably going to email you back and say, how did you deal with this, Tiffany? And you're going to tell him how you dealt with it. And did you call parents? And do we have a plan of action and all that stuff? But I'm not going to approve this to be on his historical record forever. I'm going to say solved and move on. It's something that you as teachers should probably deal with. Okay. So that's an example of how you use log entries. Okay. There's also up in this screen, there's another quick lookup. And of course you can look at all your teacher comments on this student. If you're creating teacher comments and you can see what you've listed, that's kind of a good one. The rest of these, I guess I haven't really used much. Okay. All right. So any questions on those student screens so far? Okay. The last piece before we jump in the gradebook is your seating chart. If I go to seating chart, and to me, I would just use the seating chart under the AM. Unless you honestly have a different seating chart for reading and a different seating chart for math and a different seating chart for science, then you go ahead and build seating charts for those. But for me, I'm just going to build a seating chart here. This is my practice 1 seating chart. Where is my desk? Where is my door? Maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's not. Okay, it won't let me move either one of those. Let's see if I can create a new one, new layout. Finish. Okay, so now I can create a new layout. And I go to seating chart design, and I'm going to populate. Okay, and it puts my kids in here, and then I can start choosing one at a time, and I can create my seating chart. And maybe we're going to have kids in kind of cubes around the room, and I'm going to put their groupings together and build their seating chart areas around the room. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm not going to finish this, but you kind of get the idea. You can build different seating charts however you'd like to represent your students and how they're learning and spending time together. And then you can save this and name it whatever you want. I did seating charts about every 3 weeks when I was a 1st grade teacher, just for difference. I did some U-shaped stuff, some V stuff. I used rows once in a while. I did big groups of 6, small groups of 2 or 3. But you can create your seating charts here, and you can save them. You have different objects here, so I can put my desk in there. There's a door there. I can put my door in here. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay. Honestly, in COVID, these became really important because when a kid went home sick and tested positive in COVID, they wanted to know who they were sitting by in their group. And so many administrators made teachers build seating charts so they could track who they were sitting by, who they came in contact with. Okay, but it's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Leave page. All right. Okay, so that's kind of all the stuff on the Power Teacher side before we get in the gradebook. Any questions on Power Teacher before we jump into Power Teacher Pro?
I have a quick question. Is that seating chart printable then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can print your screen.
That's
Yep.
so cool.
You can print them. Yeah. Substitutes, it matters, right? Especially in the high school. Every hour, then you could do a seating chart with, if you use pictures in Power School, those students will be pictures. They won't just be names, they'll be pictures. So it's also good for like emergency bucket or your emergency binder with pictures. Yep, very cool. Okay, if you think that's cool, Tiffany, just wait till you see the good stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the grade book, and now we're going to refer to page 4 in your document. On page 4 in your document, we're going to start with display preferences after we talk about a few locations. Now, first thing I want you to notice is this little white bar in the top middle. Now, in my grade book, I teach high school and elementary. So I have high school sections and elementary sessions. You're only going to see your classroom elementary sections. You're going to see your AM, your PM, your reading, your English, your math, your writing, your social studies, your science, health class maybe, art maybe, whatever section you've been assigned. And again, we're going to check these right now to see which ones have standards and which ones don't, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is choose your AM section. Once you're in your AM section, I want you to click on A+ grading and standards and see if you have standards attached to this section. If it looks like my screen, you have standards there. My standards have something to do with library and technology and career-ready practices. Yours might have something to do with behaviors. If you have standards there, that means you're going to create assignments in your AM section and attach standards and score your behaviors. My recommendation is weekly, once a week. Go talk to your principal. How often do they want you to score behavior standards? If you have them, okay? Then I want you to go to your PM section and see if you have standards there. Mine are my behaviors. Listen and follow directions, show respect to myself and others, self-control, responsibility. These are my behaviors. I score my behaviors in my school once a week. I will be demonstrating that here shortly, how we do that, okay? Then I'm going to go to reading. And of course, you're going to see standards there, I would assume, or you wouldn't be in this class. And then I would go to, if I have an English or a language or a writing, go to that one. And again, you're going to see standards there, I would assume. These are my writing standards. And then I want you to go to mathematics. And you're going to see some standards there. Mine have scores, yours don't, but you should see standards. Okay. And then if you have science or social studies, go to that one and see if you have standards there. And continue to look at all your sections to make sure you have standards. I have PE, so I have PE standards there. Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to choose each of your sections and see if you have standards. If you have standards, you'll be creating assignments and attaching standards and scoring them whenever you do activities over time. More is better. The more data you collect, the better the information about your kids that you're gathering. Okay. Some schools have an expectation of 5 or 7 times per term. We did 10 per term, per standard. Okay. So my teachers were in their grade books multiple times a day, creating assignments and scoring standards. Okay. All right. Questions on that piece? The other piece you're going to see up on the top, this is the plus sign. This is how you create assignments and categories. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. Here's your help that I was talking to you about. And then if you click on your initials, you can change your view. So I changed it to small. Now I can see all my kids with their standards, right? If I go to large, it doesn't fit on a screen. So you got to think about how you want to view stuff when you're working. I spend most of my time in medium, and I'm going to go back to second grade reading because that's where I'm spend most of my time here today. Okay. The other piece is right below it. You see a gear. The only thing you really need to be concerned about here is recalculation of final grades. whenever I score a lot of stuff, I might want to do a recalculation to make sure my gradebook has refreshed itself, especially if I've had it open for a long period of time. Or I closed my laptop, went home, and opened my laptop. Do a recalculation of final grades, okay? The steps are in the doc, and I'll remind you of that here a little later. And then here is your terms. There's a drop-down arrow right next to it in the top right corner with your terms. So notice what your first day of school is for quarter one or Y1. You can't really create grades unless you choose a date within that range of dates. So a lot of you start school next Thursday, the 17th. When you practice today, create an assignment August 17th or August 18th for your practice assignment. Don't use today's date. It won't work because you don't have school today. I do, but you don't. Okay. In standards, guys, there's no reason not to be in Y1. When you get done with quarter one, it remembers the grade, but it's not final. You don't have a grade for quarter one and then start over in quarter two like you do in traditional grades. All the grades build to Y1. As soon as I start scoring in quarter two, it uses 2 of the grades in quarter one with the new grade in quarter two, and that's your current grade. And if I score another one, it drops 1 and uses 1 from quarter one and 2 from quarter two, and that's your current grade. It doesn't stop in quarter one and start over in quarter two. Everything flows together. So in standards, I simply work in Y1. There's no reason not to. When I create an assignment, it's going to fit it where it goes based on the date. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Sorry, I don't mean to be that person, but that keeps asking, but might you grade different standards in different quarters, or do all standards get graded every quarter?
Boy, that's a good question. I have a lot of opinions about that question. I'll use measurement and fractions as my math example. Okay, so historically speaking, students' achievement in math in fractions, decimals, measurement aren't as good as other areas. And one of the reasons they're not as good is because the book says we teach fractions in February. Rob says if we have standards focused on fractions, we should teach those all year. Just the same as we teach everything else. I don't care what your book says or your Basel says. You've decided fractions are important. So we should teach some fractions all year. And there is a way to manage yourself to make sure you're teaching all skills all year. And I think you should. I think as you work through this, you should try to make sure in your lesson planning, and we actually made sure of it because we posted our I can statements and we documented how we were scoring these things. You kind of got to make sure you teach everything all the time. Now, I would agree, Tiffany, especially in the primary grades, we introduce some things early and not some things till later. I think that's probably true. But you do have to manage that. You got to watch yourself and make sure you're teaching everything kind of all year. If I only learn how to dribble a basketball in February, I can't be expected to be good at it in November because I haven't practiced since February, right? So we have to give kids an opportunity to learn all things all the time. And that's hard. It's hard to manage that in the classroom. Okay, so long answer to that. I tried to summarize it quickly because I could spend an hour just on that question. Okay, so back to the grade book. Tiffany, that was a good question. So just don't forget this small, medium, large piece in your initials because that's going to be important for PowerSchool and for standards. Okay, page 4, display preferences. You can do this with me now. Click on settings and display settings. If, and I think Wilton and Napoleon would be these two examples. If you are standards only, Richardson Taylor, I know we have one of those. If you're standards only, you're gonna unchecked show traditional grades. You don't use them at all. You guys do standards for everything. So you don't need percentages or points or letter grades at all. If you're not sure, leave it checked and go talk to your principal. Okay? I have high school classes that use percentages and points, so I'm leaving mine checked. If I was only elementary, I would uncheck this and be standards only. Okay? For everyone today, scroll to standards usage and make sure your screen looks just like mine. And there's a picture of it on the bottom of page 4. We're going to check those 4 boxes. The drop down for auto calculate assignments should say new assignments start unchecked. And your navigation link sort order should be standards first, traditional second. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to make sure everybody has their gradebook set just like this. And then we're going to scroll to the bottom. We're going to leave it as last first, last name. Check the box for hiding pre-registered students, which means if I have a kid starting in a month, I don't want him to show up till he gets here. And then custom starting page is assignment list. Okay, so I'll review. Standards usage should have these 4 boxes checked. New assignments start unchecked and standards, comma, traditional. And then scroll to the bottom. Last first, last name, hide pre-registered students. And then assignment list. And then save it. And that saved it for your whole gradebook for all your sections. Yes, Emily, I'm charging you extra because you're making me show it for a 3rd time. There it is, right in front of you. I know I go too fast, guys. I get excited about this stuff. I love the gradebook. I really do want to make sure you have this set correctly right today. And again, remember, you don't have to do this for every section. This does it for your whole gradebook. All right, okay. So up on the top, I'm not going to spend time on student contacts because if your school doesn't use it, it's kind of a waste of your time. If your school uses it, somebody will cover that with you. Viewing and adding class descriptions. So click settings and click class descriptions. Now I want to go to my PM section for you on this, okay? So these are all my classes, okay? I have my AM attendance section. You might want to open your AM and change the name to AM2-behaviors. Some of you have behaviors there. Okay, AM2 behaviors, if you do behavior standards. Remember when we looked at the beginning, if you had standards there, you might want to do that. I did that for my PM because my behaviors are in my PM section. This is where I score 2nd grade behaviors. So I changed the name to 2nd grade behaviors. But that's what this is for, is you can go to any of these sections and you can change names. Now you can see in my sections, I'm a 2nd grade teacher and you're seeing a 1st grade reading section and a 3rd grade reading section as well as my 2nd grade reading section, right? That's because I differentiate. Okay, so I could change this to reading 1 at level grade 1 readers and save it. And that's the section that shows up. And my reading 3 are my at level grade 3 readers and save that. Okay, that's why I have these multiple sections, because I got 3 levels of readers in my room. And so I'm going to assess different levels of standards with them. Okay, so that's up to you how you do this. Some schools are doing differentiation, some schools are not. Wilton and Napoleon should be. They've been in standards long enough. Richardson Taylor should be. They've been in standards long enough. But it is honestly an administrative decision on how you do this stuff. Okay. But that's class descriptions, and that's how you're using it. Whatever you name it here is for your use only. Parents can't see that you changed the name of your class. Okay, it's for your use only. One of my favorites down on the bottom of page 5. Categories for standards. These are awesome. Okay, so you're gonna go A+ grading, and then you're gonna choose categories. Okay, so these are the categories I use for standards, guys. I've tried a whole bunch of them. I've built all kinds of them and tried them. I do standards grading weekly for my job. And these are the categories that I use all the time. A category is different for standards than it is for traditional grades. There's no weighting here. Every time I score a standard, it is weighted as is every other standard. There's no more importance for a test versus a exit ticket or a whiteboard check. They're all the same. Everything's the same. Every standard, every time it's checked, counts the same. The only thing that matters with standards is the last 3. All the rest we're documenting over time where they've been along their path of learning. Okay? But everything I do with the kid counts. So if they're working and I'm observing them in guided reading groups, talk with comprehension questions about the story they just read, I'm grading that. If we do a whiteboard check with ing endings, and I want to make sure that they're using their phonics skills to spell words correctly, I'm grading that whiteboard check. If we do an exit ticket with show me how to use an adjective with a noun in a sentence correctly on your way to the bus, I'm grading that. Okay, all those things are skill checks. And that's what standards are. Standards are skill checks. So I've created categories that help me account for the kind of things we're doing in the classroom. We do projects. We do classwork individually. We do tests. We do quizzes. I model for them and then they do. I do paper and pencil, which is worksheets. I observe all the time. I do whiteboard practice. Practice is if you're struggling with the skill and need more practice, I'm using that category. And then of course, exit tickets we talked about. So how do I build a new category? Click on the plus sign, build the category, give it the name, choose your color, leave it active, go to assignment defaults, set it to points and 0, and save. Okay, I'll go through it again one more time. Click on the plus sign, choose category, give it a name, choose a color, leave it as active, go to assignment defaults, change it to points, set it to 0, and save. That's how you build a category. And if you want to take a screenshot of this screen for yourself to build your categories, do that. If you want time to build them, I'll give you time right now. I'll give you a couple minutes in class right now. I want you to make sure for project, you click on the pencil, go to assignment defaults, change the points to 0 and save it. Classwork, click on the pencil, go to assignment defaults, change the points to 0 and save it. Do the same for tests and quizzes, because right now they're set to 10 points and you don't use points in standards, you only use standard scores. So everything needs to be 0 points. So for those 4, edit the categories. And if you want to add more, click the plus sign and build some more. Just make sure you assign 0 points to each one. Okay, I'll give you a couple minutes, about 1:34, I'll move forward. you have questions, please ask. Okay, anybody need more time before we move on for building categories? Okay, so now we're going to go to settings, standard grade calculations. So I'll show you again, settings, standard grade calculations. Okay. So the class you have open should open. The standards grade calculation doesn't matter which class you're in because they're all the same. Everything calculates the same in standards, and there should be a little house here next to your calculation methods. If there's not, I want you to put it in the chat because Amanda's going to keep track of those and I'm going to fix them after class today because we don't want you farting around and messing the grade calculation. So if your school did not lock down your grade calculation and it doesn't show this little house on the right and you see a little pencil instead of a house, chat Amanda, we'll fix that for you. Okay. Standards grade calculations, we all use the same calculation. It's most recent 3 and it's the average of most recent 3. And you're going to see most recent scores, 3 scores, and the average and auto calculate check down on the bottom. Now your 3 might look a little different. You can click on that little information eye. Yours is going to be 33%, 33%, and 33%. Mine's going to be 60, 30, 10, which means I put a little more weight on my final score. You balance all 3 scores evenly, which is how we want you guys to do that. Okay. So I just wanted you to know this is the calculation method that I showed you at the beginning, coming from the district office. I wasn't lying to you. This really is what it is. Okay. Moving forward, turn to page 6 and 7. Click on A+ grading, standards, and just click in the box for one of your standards. So it's A+ grading, standards, click in the box. Once you click in the box, you can see over on your right, your 4321 pops up. And then click on show more and grade scale. There's your grade scale. Okay. I'm going to explain this to you, and then it's going to mean more once we score an assignment. This is your 4321. A 3 is meeting expectation. A 2 is approaching expectation. A 4 is exceeding expectation. And a 1 means you need a lot of help. You're also going to see a percent value over on the right. There are no percentages in standards, but there is a value to your numbers. When you put a 3 in, PowerSchool sees an 89. It is not a percentage. We don't use percentages. When you put a 2 in, PowerSchool sees a 76. Let me show you what this means, and I'm going to spend more time on it later, but I do want to show you what this means. Okay, so if I go to Jack and I pull up his current standard scores, let's go to text evidence. This is a new year, so I have some stuff and I have not other stuff.
Tiffany, yeah, if you don't enter a grade, it won't have anything in there. It'll just be blank and it won't hurt or help their grade until you enter something.
Okay, so if I go to Jack's standard scores from last year, if you look at his final 3 scores here, his final 3 entries, the 2, 3, 3, the 2 is a 76, the 3 is an 89, and the 3 is an 89 in PowerSchool. It uses a 100-point method to find accurate calculation. So it's adding the 76 plus the 89 plus the 89 dividing by 3. Student comes out to about an 84. And if we go back to our assignment list and I go back to current year, reading class and I go to those standards where I was before, and that show more grade scale, anything between an 80 and a 98 is going to be a 3. So it's just a calculation so you understand that that's why it shows it that way. We don't work in percentages in standards. When we do a worksheet of 8 problems and the students score 6 out of 8, they get 6 of the problems done correctly and 2 of them they struggled with, they're going to get a 2. Depending on how many skills that you're scoring. You might be checking 2 different standards on this worksheet. So the expectation is they're able to do this. They're able to do this with confidence. That's the expectation. So doing the worksheet correctly with confidence would be a 3. And if they struggle with the worksheet, they're approaching, they're not quite there, they need more practice, it's a 2. Okay, so that's how you look at a worksheet differently than you have before. If on that worksheet there were 3 standards being checked, my teachers would use a blue, a red, and a yellow marker, and they would have scored 1 standard with blue, 1 standard with red, and 1 standard with yellow. So, and the students know all of this as they're going in. These are all procedures to help you understand how to grade students in standards. Okay? Any questions on that piece? That's how you see your grade scale, and I wanted it to make sense to you. All right, so now let's get to our assignment list, which you don't see. And I'm going to start with behaviors first. Walk you through a couple of assignments with behaviors. I'm going to go to my reading class and walk you through a couple of assignments with reading. I'll go to math and walk you through 1 or 2 of those. And then we'll create some assignments. Okay, I think it'll all make sense to you by then. All right, so let's go look at my week 1 behavior assignment. Okay, with behaviors, we scored them weekly. And we actually scored 2 behaviors per week. You might score all 4 or 5 behaviors you have per week. I don't know how your administrator wants you to do it. But I call it week 1. I assign classwork. It assigns 0 points for me because I told the category to do that earlier. I go to the students tab. It's for all kids. Now, what if somebody's sick this week? Then I take Donnell out. He doesn't need the assignment. He wasn't here. And then I go to the standards. Here's all my standards. I'm selecting those 2 to score this week, because those are the 2 skills I'm teaching and I'm spending time on. And then I save and close, and I go score the assignment, and I'm going to change my view to small so you can see the whole thing. Here's my respect standard. Here's my complete work on time standard. I don't do anything in the first column. The first column is a bookmark. It's 0 points. I could say Donnell's missing this week. I'm going to remove that from Megan and I'm put it under to Donnell. But honestly, I would have removed her from the assignment, so I probably wouldn't have done that either. Okay, so now here's how we did behaviors. Everybody gets a 3 to start the week. A 3 is proficiency. We assume in my school, everybody's going to have good behaviors this week. That's the assumption. Tiffany would probably be working towards a following directions too so far today. No, I'm joking, Tiffany, completely. But you get my point, right? Whatever that skill is that a student needed help with throughout the whole week, if I had to remind on organization or remind on respect or remind on behaviors, we are all growing, Tiffany, right on. It's the positive. Okay, then I would change this student's grade. So let's go to Jack. He struggled with respect. I'm going to change his grade to a 2. And he also struggled with responsibility and completing work on time. I'm changing it to a 2. Because throughout the whole week, I had to remind him of this stuff. So he earned a 2 this week. And then I save scores. Okay, that's how we did behaviors. You have to find out how you guys are doing behaviors and work habits in your school. We did them weekly. And then you can see that in my assignment list. You're going to see some weekly assignments. Now, if I go to quarter 1, you're going to see week 1, week 2, week 3, and we'll build up through week 9. Okay? Questions on behaviors? Okay, so now I'm going to go to reading 2. And you're going to see a whole bunch of assignments in quarter 1 already. Holy smokes, we're off to a good start. Well, you got to remember, I'm an experienced teacher. I actually copied my assignments from last year. So I did all this work to create an assignment for every activity we did, and I attached standards to all of them. And then all I did was I copied my assignments from last grade book. So I went to 2022-23. I went to reading 2 class. I copied it to 2023-24 to my reading 2 class. And it goes and finds all of my assignments with standards attached. I just selected them and copied them. And that's why you see them in my grade book. They're there. I'm ready to teach. So if I go to where the wild things are, which is an assignment we did on the 31st of July, I can go score that sucker right away. It's ready to go. So let's go look at one for today. 8-11. There, I got a couple of them. Okay. Let's go to the bad seed. Okay. And let's walk through this assignment. So it's got the 1s on the end because I've copied them a couple times, but I'm going to remove that. It's called the bad seed. It's classwork. It's a story. Okay. Here's how I did the assignment. I read it orally to the kids. Probably sat on the carpet, just relaxed a little. They listened to me read the story. Okay. I might have prefaced it by saying, guys, we're looking for certain things in the story today. You got to make sure you understand the main topic of this story. And then I tell them what the main topic idea is. What's the purpose of the story? Why did you think the author wrote this story? And then when you read it, you're going to have to put expression and accuracy, and you have to be fluent and really explain with your voice and with your understanding of words when you read it today. Okay, so let's go back to the assignment. It's today's date. I assigned it as classwork because if it's a thing we're doing in class, and it's worth 0 points. This is for all kids. But understand, I can do an activity with 4 or 5 kids that need extra skill work. Right? More fluency work, more sentence structure work, more capitalization or punctuation work. I can do as many assignments as I want to for small groups. Kids that got it, I don't need to give it to them. I can give it to kids that need more practice. And then here's the standards we attached versus all the possible skills available to us. Okay, these are all the possible skills available to us. These are the ones that we attached. Okay, and then save and close. And then I'm going to score that assignment. Okay, so now you see my screen as it was before with my behaviors. That first column, only for my documentation of any work habits. Oh, and I can put comments in here too, which I might want to with standards often. So what I would do with this is I would screenshot this page like so, and then I'd put that on my clipboard, and as I'm watching kids read and study and work, I'd be grading them. So I read the story orally. They went to small groups and read it together, and then they read individually. and I can listen to kids reading individual. We actually had a procedure. When I got on my knee next to you, you turned your voice up so I could hear you reading. When I walked away, you turned it back down, and then I went to the next kid. And so I could pop around and listen to kids read out loud or silence. Okay. And as they did that, I scored them. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for today. Then they got into small groups that they might have been already working in, and they answered questions about the story. And as they're talking about the story, I'm grading, did they understand main topic? Did they understand main purpose? Two different things. Okay. So my clipboard's full of scores, and when I look at it, most kids had a 2. So I scored Megan a 2 and quick filled everybody else. Main purpose, most kids were a 2. So I scored Megan and I quick filled everybody else. And then I'm not going to score the big skill. I'm going to score the small one, read text with purpose and understanding instead of fluency. And most kids were a 2. Okay. And now my standards are scored, but hold on. Some kids did meet proficiency, so I'm going to add those 3s in on certain skills. And Jack really struggled today. He was 1s in all of them. And that warrants a comment from me. Okay, so we read and did activities with the bad seed. Jack struggled with understanding main idea and main purpose, and reading fluently was hard for him today. We will practice this story and others like it more the next few days. And save. Okay. Now, Amanda always says we don't need to write a paragraph, but in this case, this was a big project. This was a big reading piece, and he struggled with all of the skills. So I'm going to let Mom and Dad know, and I'm going to let Jack know. Don't worry about it. We don't mind that this was hard for you today, because you're going to have plenty of practice coming up to continue to get better at this. Okay. So that's how we score standards. Let's go back to our assignment list. Let's go look at August 11th, and let's look at one more. Okay, so we did the bad seed. Now you notice it shows 0 out of 20 scored. That's because we didn't put anything in the first column. We don't score points. It's always going to show 0 out of whatever when you're scoring standards, because you're not scoring points, you're scoring just skills. So let's go look at, oh, do I have a skills one around here? Here we go. Sentence structure 3. That's actually a 26 assignment, but we'll look at it today. Okay, we're doing some sentence structure practice. This is the 3rd check of the year. It's coming up on August 26th. So I give it the name. I attach practice, which assigns 0 points. It's for all 20 kids, but actually let's change that. Javier doesn't need it, Trinity doesn't need it, and Rhett doesn't need it. Because I feel they're pretty good on their skills. We'll revisit them later. They're doing other things at the next level today. And then let's go to standards. I can speak in complete sentences, and I can use digital media to visually display my knowledge. Save and close. So it's kind of like a little presentation. And then I'm going to score this assignment. This is something that we did individually. Okay, so I either collected something or I worked with them individually at tables as they rotated around and through. So I'm going to fill sideways instead of down. And Megan got a 2 on both skills, so I'm going to fill sideways. And Scott got a 2 and a 3, so I'm going to fill a 2 and then put a 3 in the skill that he got a 3 on. And Barb was proficient in both skills, so I'm going to fill sideways. Okay, So you can use both tools, filling sideways or filling down for your kids as you worked with them on this project or on this activity. Okay, both tools are important and important for us to use. Okay, I'm going to quick fill them down so I got everybody done, but you guys get the idea. Okay, quick fill sideways, quick fill down. They're both usable in standards, and they're both important because most times, especially in the upper elementary, you're going to have multiple skills attached to an assignment. That's going to happen. K1 and 2, a lot of times your assignments might just be one skill check, and then it's easier to score that way, right? Okay, so now let's score one from scratch. We're going to create one assignment from scratch, and then you guys are going to create a couple practice assignments after this, okay? So how do I build one from scratch? Well, it's A+ grading, assignment list, click on your plus sign, and assignment. Okay, so we'll call this August 11 phonics check number 4. And this is going to be a paper and pencil activity. So it's a worksheet. It's worth 0 points. We'll leave it for all kids for easy purposes today. And which standards do I want? Well, I got to go to my phonics skills. So I'm going to go down to, today we're working on spelling words correctly in our writing. And they're 2-syllable words with long vowels. And I'll save and close, and I'll go score the assignment. Now it's a worksheet, so I'm collecting something from the kids, presented the activity, showed them what best practice proficiency looks like, reviewed the activity, and then they had to go to work and complete the phonics check. Megan was partially proficient on both. Javier was proficient on both. Scott was partially proficient on both. And I'm going to score those worksheets as I go through. Okay, so I'm just going to quick fill these down for right now's purposes so you guys get the idea. Okay, and then I'm going to save those scores. Make sense? Questions on creating an assignment with standards attached? Okay, I want you to go to your reading class, A+ grading, and it's probably going to be empty under your assignment list. Click plus and create an assignment and attach some standards and practice scoring them. And then do it for math too. And I'll give you about 3 minutes for that. Hey, Taya, what's up?
So I was just wondering, when creating an assignment, so we do both traditional and standard. So if I'm doing like a standard grading, and underneath the grade options, do I uncheck the count in traditional final grade box then, or leave that?
For standards only, it stays checked. So remember, we did that in our categories. When we set these categories up, if you watch my screen to assignment defaults, we changed it to 0 points and that box stayed checked.
Okay, perfect.
And that's how every assignment should be, no matter if you're doing points with some of your traditional grades. You can do points and standards at the same time. Score the first column with points, then score your standards at your 4, 3, 2, 1. But everything counts.
Okay.
Okay, good question.
Thank you.
And if you do that, Ty, in your categories, you don't ever have to touch it. It's just going to always be that way.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. Okay, so I have 2 questions. I'm going to take Abby's first, Emily's second. Okay, Abby, go to your categories, A+ grading categories, like my screen shows. Click on your edit pencil for each category. Go to assignment defaults, change your 10 to 0 and save. And do that for all your categories. Power School defaults to 10 points. We change our categories to hold 0 points. So then, Abby, when you choose your category, it automatically assigns 0 points for you every time. So make sure you do that, then go create your assignment again. Emily, I'm going to jump into Wilton here, and we're going to see what happened. My guess is you use today's date, which is outside of the school year. So your assignment didn't save. Or it showed up in your Q1, but I can go see it here. Let's go to Emily Hudson Bueller. Did you know I can kind of keep an eye on you to make sure you're not messing things up here, Emily? What class did you do this in? Language arts. Okay, so there's your assignments. They're showing up just fine. Yeah, you got to make sure you use August 17th. And if I click on Molly Lou Lemon, now you can start scoring. Go ahead and score them. And then you can delete one of these. You don't need 2 of them. You can delete one of those. Okay. They're there. Remember, those dates matter a lot. Yep. Remember, be A+ grading assignment list. That's where you want to be. They're there. Good work. She must have had a good teacher, Amanda. I'm just saying. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. We've given you about 5 minutes on creating assignments. Any other questions with creating assignments? 2:03 actually. Do we need more time? Do we think we got this? I know Taya's got it because she was educated in Wing, and Mr. Schaefer was her principal back in the day, so I know she's got it. Good? I'm not hearing anything, so we can move forward. Okay, so now guys, we get to the most exciting part of all of this stuff. Okay, there's 2 progress tabs that we're going to spend time on. So if you skip ahead in your document to page 10 and 11, I'm going to show you the cool power that you've just created for yourself in standards. And I'm actually going to go to last year's grade book because I have a whole bunch more data in last year's grade book, and it will be in 2nd grade reading. Okay, but I'm on A+ grading assignment list. I'm going to set my term to Y1, and you can't really do this in your grade book yet because you don't have a lot of data. So just watch me and look at your doc and make notes in there as you need to. But I'm going to be Y1 in my 2nd grade reading. I'm going to click progress on the left and standards. Here's all of my standards in reading. And it shows me over here, Tiffany, you and I talked about this earlier. Here's how many times I've scored all of these standards. It shows me. So remember, in my school, our goal was 40 times a year. Okay, so we tried to track ourselves. By the end of the year, I should be on target to teach this skill 40 times. You can see I've taught this one 29. And if I click on that scores, it shows me which kids are 2s, which kids are 3s, which kids are 1s. Now when I teach the skill tomorrow, I know how to group my kids. And it shows me that for all my skills that I've taught. Okay, every skill I've taught, I have a grouping, and it shows me if some are trending, which way they're trending. I know how to group my kids in all skills. Super cool. My teachers use this for PLCs. They come together in PLCs on Wednesday afternoons, and they talk about how are we doing? What skills are strengths? What skills are weaknesses? What skills do I need to teach more? Which ones have I forgotten to teach? And eventually we got really good at this. Okay. But wait, there's more. If I click on students and I select a student, there's also a standards progress button here. And I'm going to change my view to medium all the time. And now here's Jack's scores. This is how Jack's doing. And this is how many times he's been scored on describing the structure of a story. And if I click on that, guys, there's all my data points. Remember I told you at the beginning, score as often as you can. Score the skill. Every time you do a skill, score it. Because now you've collected all this wonderful data on how Jack has done on structure of a story all year long. And my teachers got good at pulling things into portfolios to have conversations with parents. They got really good at that. So when they had a question from a parent or a parent-teacher conference coming up, they could show some strengths and some struggles. That's really good information on our kids. And that's why I talked earlier, we really need to be honest with how we're scoring them. We don't mind ones and twos because the ones and twos don't matter at the end. We just want them to be proficient at the end. Every skill, we have this data on every skill, guys. If I scroll through these skills, you're going to see I've collected this data on everything all year. This is really important, cool information. Main topic of a text has really good data. Okay. But I have to score, right? I have to create an assignment, I have to attach the standards, and I have to score them. I also have this data on behaviors, remember? And I have this data in mathematics, and I have this data in writing too. And if you do social studies and science, like in Napoleon, you're going to have it there too. Okay. So I wanted to show you that progress standards is whole class, and students choose a kid, standards progress is each individual student and each individual skill. Oh, and wait, look at the bottom. These are the kinds of assignments we did with our categories. It tells us, are they really good at tests? Are they really good at quizzes? Are they really good at projects and classwork? It shows you their strengths and weaknesses in the kind of activities that you're documenting and recording. Okay. Questions on progress? Anybody? Wonderful. Okay, on page 14, I created some practices for you so you could go create a math assignment and a language arts assignment. And if you have PE or art or health or social studies or science, do another one and give yourself a chance to practice a few times before you get kids in the room. And if I was you first year, I would go in Friday afternoon or Sunday evening and create my weekly assignments and attach all my standards for the week. So then once I get in here, I can go into that assignment. I can open it up. Let's find one that I haven't scored, Rob. Let's go right here. Zookeeping. Oh, I scored that one too. Oh, I'm into last year. That's why they're all scored. Let's go to this year. There we go. And let's go get an assignment. And then if you do that, you go to small view. If I have my assignments created for the week, then I can go copy them, put them on my clipboard, and I can use it to score kids. So that's what I would try to do, or do it by day. In the morning, create your assignments for the day, so then you can copy them and put them on clipboards, whatever works best for you. But find a method to be able to have a plan ahead a little bit with your standards attached, your assignments created, so you can score easily and quickly. It'll save you a lot of time. The other important part with standards is feedback is important. You can't store this stuff up to just do at the end of the week. You got to do it as much as you can. Okay, score as much as you can, as soon as you can. Immediate feedback is important. Okay. All right, so let's go. We showed you how to copy assignments on page 15. We talked about the inspectors, flags, and adding comments on page 17.
Rob,
Yeah,
Abby asked if you could show how to copy an assignment list from last year.
yeah, I will. All right, so to copy from year to year, you got to start A+ grading score sheet. And we don't use the score sheet in standards, but you got to be at the score sheet. And then you go to gear up by the term and copy assignments. Guys, we did this in Wing when I was the principal every fall. And then you go to 22-23, select the class, which is reading last year, second grade reading last year. And I want all of that copied to this year, second grade reading. Leave the dates relational. It finds the closest date that matches it. Choose all the assignments, copy. You could do quarter 1 to quarter 1, quarter 2 to quarter 2. I just copy my whole year. Then I'm done. And then copy assignments. And they're right in your grade book, ready to go. And then if you don't want them, you just delete. And if you're building some new ones because you have extra skill checks for certain kids, you just build those new ones. No big deal. But you saved yourself a lot of time. You saved yourself a lot of time. Okay? Abby, was that good? You want to see it again? Hearing nothing? We're good? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So the last thing I want to show you then is reports. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. They are at the end of the page, Power Teacher Pro Reports, page 21 to the end. I'll show you a couple of them, but I'll let you play around with this. First off, you can print report cards from here, but that's back on Power Teacher. Click on your information card, choose a kid, print a report. You can print standards-based report cards from your gradebook. Your principal has given you permissions to do that, I guarantee you. However, a lot of you don't even do report cards anymore because you just teach parents how to come in and view. Okay, so reports, click on reports, and let's look at the student roster report. Okay, let's say I want a roster of my kids. Which class do I want it for? Guys, everything you do in your grade book is going to be your AM section. You don't need to print from anywhere else. Yeah, I suppose if you want to read just reading grades, you could just choose reading grades if you want just math grades. But in most cases, you're going to choose your AM class roster and you're going to print stuff from there. Okay. What's the layout? By student, by last name. And let's add columns. I have name, birthday, phone. Let's add gender. And let's add grade level. Okay. So I've got a spreadsheet where I'm going to get my student name, my birthday, my phone number, my gender, my grade. I want to move my grade up. There we go. And then I'm going to run that report. And then if I click on the reports tab on the left side and go to report queue, there it is. I'm going to open it up. There's my student roster report I just built from my gradebook with all their demographic information that I need. That's the coolest one. Amanda likes the individual student report.
Well, that's
again,
if you're doing traditional.
Traditional grades, it's really good. Standards grades, it's a little different. But again, you just set this up with whatever you want. I'm going to pull standards identifiers. I'm going to run that report. And then I'm going to go to the report queue. And here's that individual student report. It's still running. I'm going to refresh. There it is. And this is what it pulls up. So it pulls nice standards final grades too, where they are currently. It always says standard final grade. It's not final. It's where currently what the grade is today. Okay, and it does that for each kid. So you get a nice little report. Man, I don't know why they don't just print this sucker if they want a standards grades report. They could just print this sucker instead of building all these other report cards they think they got to have. Okay, but you want to go over here and play around with the different kind of reports that you're going to use. Score sheet report won't mean anything to you because you don't use a score sheet. Final grades report might be helpful. Missing assignment report will only work if you mark kids as missing assignments. Then you'll have something to look at. But to me, the best one will be your student roster report for standards grades kids. Okay. Okay. Questions on anything that you want to see again before we wrap up? I know I picked on some of you because you were asking a lot of questions, but actually you made the class way better, Tiffany, because you were involved and engaged. So we appreciate that. That's just my nature. I always pick on people. Okay, Emily, when I run a report, it doesn't generate anything. Do the refresh. And Emily, if you continue to have that problem, you have a good tech guy. Get him to come look to see why it's not working. It should. You should be able to generate. If you have students enrolled, you should be able to generate your student roster report today with all your student roster information. So get them to come over. Actually, Macy's is a pretty good resource too for you. She's good in PowerSchool. Okay, so get them to look at it first, and if she needs me, she'll get a hold of me with questions. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Emily, for that. Down on the bottom of this PowerPoint, you'll see my email. And I do want you to use it if you need it. I think it's important to understand and realize, though, if I'm a teacher and if I have questions locally, go to your PowerSchool specialist first. A lot of times it's your principal. A lot of times you actually have a colleague teacher who's really good at the gradebook. Go ask them questions, see if they can help you first. And if you can't get any questions answered locally, pop me an email and I'll help you with what I can, especially in the standards world, because I love that stuff. I'll help you with any of those questions you might have. Okay. So Amanda, anything to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. We got one question coming in on chat here, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate it. I hope it was helpful. Guys, have a great year. I can't believe it's here already. I feel like we just wrapped up last year and here we are ready to teach already. And I don't know if our kids are ready to come back. So good luck to all of you getting them ready to come back to school. I'm here for you. Amanda's here for you. Nice meeting you all. Have a great school year, guys.